And welcome to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com and allrevolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood. My name is Monty Dean. Hello, how is everything going in your world? Have you been looking at Clown World and giggling? Are you healthy? You're good? You're working things out? Have you spoken to your mother lately? Yeah, I'm rambling now. Big thank you to Tony, why not, for the Y-Files. We'll catch the last half an hour of it. It's good to see grown men politely talk to each other. I kid. Always fascinating to hear different points of view. That's part of the wonders of the Open Roundtable. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the website, freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio and donate what you can, because Revolution Radio is 100% listener supported and 100% volunteers. I would say it's one of the longest crowd-funded projects on the internet, and I believe because it is totally listener supported, it is the number one talk radio station on the internet until someone points out that it's changed. When you're at the website, go into some merch, buy some t-shirts and hats and onesies for the little ones, and then pop into the chat room and hang out with like-minded, like-hearted, and just like people, really. It's I'm going to go a bit romper room. I can see SJ and Jer Bear, Chem61, Canadian, or the Canadian, or just Canadian is there as well. Eagle Flower and Flippy as well. So for those late at night, because it is 2 a.m. on the east coast of the United States, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in Melbourne, Victoria. Hello from the future. Thank you for staying awake. Or if you, I could understand if you wanted to go to sleep, listen to this as well. He's got this wonderful voice. Anywho, if you want to join the roundtable, just drop me a message on Skype and I'll add you to the call. Or you can try and call in. I think if you call Monty_Dean or Freedom Screen, and we'll add you to the call and we'll have a great chat. I've got a list of things that have popped up just this week and we'll have a chat. But first, we have been joined by some regulars. I nearly said irregulars, but I can say that. I'm in Australia. They're in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm fine. We have been joined by Bruce MacDonald and Steve Zerilath. Bruce, how are you, my friend?
Very good, Monty. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, it's the coronavirus wave 2 is hit, and toilet paper is gold again. But that's in my list. We'll get to that soon, I'm sure. But yeah, just flowing with the energies and trying to stay in the now and not let the outside world engage with me. So just trying to create my own dream bubble. You know how sort of like you live on a mountain, really don't care what's happening in Washington. You know, that level of like, I'm fine. And that looks like utter crap. I'm glad I'm here. Also, you'll like this because you've been part of the stand-up comedy world. There's a group on Facebook that I'm part of. It's like the old Vanguard, and I put up. It's on Facebook, and I put up an op-ed, which is an opinion editorial, about how it's a perfect time for a billionaire to create an anti-woke streaming service or cable station. And oh geez, Bun Fight comes to mind where everyone freaked out. So I just put it up and just let the chips fall where they may. And yeah, it's funny. It was an interesting thing. It's a breakthrough in my comic career, if I could say it that way. It's like I was like, oh, there's these idiots, and then there's other people like, well, yeah. So yeah, good. Yeah, it was quite funny. So you can get material out of everything. Do you want to quickly plug your book? Because that's been released, hasn't it?
Oh, man, I do that every morning. People are sick of it. Light of Darkness, A Warrior's Tale for Our Time. It's Robert Wiegand's story. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, CIA contractor, and a host of other things that make him one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. He's got something to say, and it's extremely relevant in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And sorry to get you to repeat it, but that's part of promotion and marketing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm bad at it.
Well, also, most people, if if you're awake now and listening to Bruce, is like you have an interesting sleeping pattern, or you don't go to sleep. So there you go. We have also. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is anybody else experiencing this? Like, I don't need more than 3 or 4 hours sleep these days. I don't know if this book changed me or it's something to do with the Schumann resonance. I have no idea.
Yes, I've noticed that. I refer to them as snap naps, where I'm just going to close my eyes for a second and then 4 hours flies by. There seems to be an energy shift of some sort, or there's a change. And yeah, sleeping patterns are kind of changing. A lot of people, I don't think for us, because we're not really dictated by the lockdown, but a lot of people don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. and go to work all the time. So they've got their own natural sleeping patterns hitting in. And I've noticed that I'm maybe 6 to 7 hours, maybe. But yeah, yes, it has changed. Now I'll bring in our other guest because that way you have a different point of view of how he's sleeping as well. Steve Zerilath. Steve, how are you?
Hey, man. Yeah, well, I've been pushing myself later, kind of like into the 6 a.m. category before I pass out. But that's mostly just a cycle thing. So like I'm typically getting between 5 and 7 hours of sleep, depending on what may end up waking me up, whether it be the temperature shifts to something uncomfortable or something. But yeah, for me, not so much. But then again, I think that maybe that partly has to do with my kind of my chill disposition when I'm not angry.
Yeah, less energy running through, so you can find your balance and hum along, and not idle as in when a car idles, not idle as a stoner freak on the couch going, "Oh, I should get up. It's November." I'm not saying that.
Right. That's what all the idols are turning into right now. They're going from one idol to the other idol.
Yes. Yeah, there's our documentary, Idol to Idol. Ooh.
Exactly.
Now, I'll quickly go through, these are all starting points and we can ignore all of them, but this is sort of what's popped up on my radar, so I'll try and go through them quickly.
You gotta know the most pressing thing that popped up on the radar. The next boss fight of 2020 has manifested.
Yes, I've written that down at the end, so this is like chronological, so we'll get to it. But we'll put up options just like on Jeopardy, and we'll pick one and go for it. We can go anywhere. Like here in Victoria, Australia, COVID restrictions have been reintroduced, and they've started to hint at it's the second wave. I mean, you sort of have to ignore that 10,000 people gathered in one spot 2 weeks ago. I wonder if there's a connection. Not at all. And from that, they've started rationing again. I realised that's basically where supermarkets, like, you can only buy 2 things of certain items. Luckily enough, yesterday I bought 12 rolls of toilet paper, so I'm set for the rest of the year because I'm efficient and I don't go to the toilet that much, and it's just me.
Was that material, or were you just incidentally funny there, Monty?
Second one first, and then the first one became second. So Monty, it's like I was being incidentally funny. I was being incidentally funny, and now it's material.
But it's see what Monty's really doing here is that he's telling you that he is not full of.
I gotcha.
Yeah, cool. And so just I'm producing myself, which I like. It's not a masturbation joke. Zing, just adding someone there. Now, a Mandela effect, if I can say it that way, because this hasn't popped up in my entire lifetime of 46 years. I'm 16, really, and that is Juneteenth. That just came out of nowhere in the last 2 weeks. It was like, Juneteenth, who's June and why do you have a teeth? What's going on here? Because, slavery was 400 years ago and not now. Yeah, true, we are economic slaves. However, we'll get to that. An interesting tidbit as well, the totality of the eclipse was over Nepal, over that space where India and China had a bit of a dust-up. And there seemed to be India has completed building their bridge in extreme quickly time. It's called the Galwan Bridge. That was completed. Apparently, there's holes around Stonehenge. anything for funding, ladies and gentlemen. Seattle, that's been, we can go into that a bit later. That's been very well. It's a comedy, but not laugh. It's fun. It's falling apart. It's Chaz or Chop. I'm going to make a documentary called Soy on the Streets, so that will be coming up in the summer. Nestle here in Australia, Nestle, who owns Allen's, they're going to change the name of Redskins and Chicos because now Nestle also thinks that water isn't a human right, and they want to bottle it, and you have to buy water, even though it falls from the sky. We have cheese that was made by a Mr. Coon back in the 1830s, and so they're calling. We have to change the name of Coon cheese. Obviously not that big in Alabama, but it's been an Australian staple for years. What's next? Mars bar. We're going to have little green men going, look, this bar is offensive. It's not even got any red planet on it. And the censorship as well. I realize if you've seen The Untouchables, which is a great film with Sean Connery in it, and I can't remember the I think it's
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner, yes, about Elliot Ness in the late 20s. There's a line in it where Sean Connery said, just like a wop, bring a knife to a gunfight. I'm sure some woke heads will start crapping that about. The insanity of the Kingdom of Woke. This is the headline. Citing its representation of people diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, there is a petition calling for Netflix to stop streaming Split, which came out 2 years ago. Interesting enough, it's not on the USA Netflix. So, yeah, well done, people. There's also a movement now that apparently all statues of Jesus have to be removed because he's predicted as white. So, white Jesus bad. Attacks against white people have increased, but they're not called hate crimes. It's like, well, there's a bit of narrative. The president got in trouble with Twitter for sharing a meme, and then the idiot said, "Oh, that's fake news." Yeah, it's a meme. That's the level of incompetency, as well as this is the last item on it. Steve brought this up to me. Apparently, there's going to be Sahara Desert dust coming into the United States before we can pick one and go anywhere, or just go anywhere. We have been joined by HiJacker. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, Monty. How am I coming through?
Landed clear.
I am impressed. You've done notes. This is pretty in depth. I like the Mandela effect. That's a cool one. But no, real great show. Keep rolling. I'm just like riding shotgun. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think Steve's chomping at the bit because that's the latest one. Now I thought the jet stream went from Alaska down California into Texas, but I haven't done any more research. So Steve, you want to share just quickly the story of this is the latest thing, polar bears with lasers and murder hornets and boars are high on cocaine, but now it's
murder hornets in the sense of the material absurdity of it. Like, oh my God, there's going to be a Sahara desert storm, hitting parts of the U.S. or whatever. But on the metaphysical side of things, this is like the next wave of the jinn trying to come through and fester in more people as it can, as they continue to find radicalists, like people hardening their hearts and radicalizing themselves through this process, which I believe it is a declining process. But the problem is that, as these movements kind of come to an end and they just don't have the actual forces, the most willing to be violent among them will have a program installed upon this wind into them that will bring them to the full-blown level of radical socialist terrorists, effectively. And we'll start getting like the bombings, the sneak attacks, like a gang, You know, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So in the 3D, what is triggering all that? Because it wouldn't surprise me at all. Because Team Dark suck and they've tried everything. So well, how about we open those genie bottles and see what happens? But in the third density level, like the physical level of reality, there's been weather changes over Africa, and apparently dust is up here high enough in the stratosphere or whatever, and it's being picked up by the Gulf Stream, and it's heading for Mexico and going up through Mexico, and just the United States will be covered. You notice how the stories. This is where like the physical side, metaphysical side makes sense, but the physical side's like they're trying to create this. They're trying to manifest it because apparently it doesn't matter if the dust lands on Mexico or covers the Atlantic. It's once it gets to the United States, then we have trouble. Right,
and isn't it ironic that its path puts it crossing over the Mexican border above a wall?
Yeah. We need a wall and a net now. A wall with a net.
And the cloud seeders, they could put the smart dust in that dust. So you got that going for us as well. We've got some nonsense to deal with.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'll just wrap it up in a joke. Steve, are we writing the next Marvel movie? There'll be smart dust and there'll be African dust, and then there's the racism, and it's coming through a wall. This is brilliant.
I think I might be writing the next Philip K. Dick novel.
You can do it in like 100 years' time, looking back in history. Remember that great War of Orange Man? Where the cloud.
Got a franchise for that. It's called Assassin's Creed.
Oh, well, there you go. So, Bruce, I know we don't have much time with you because you actually have a sleeping pattern.
Got my second win now, Monty. That's okay.
See, the power of laughter.
That's twice.
Hey, well, that's me done then. Check that box. So I just wanted to share those and see if anyone was, but most of that is just complete clown world aspect. So from the neutral observer, I wrote down stuff that I think have comedic value and just the silliness or the insanity of the mainstream reality. Gentlemen,
two things on the dust. I got two things on the dust.
Go ahead.
Right. One is I never heard of a dust storm coming from the Sahara in Africa across the Atlantic Ocean. That's number one. This is the first time I can remember that. This is the first time I heard of it. Second is because I'm a cynic and I don't believe anything anymore. They can tell me. In fact, I listen to what they say. And they say, well, don't worry about this. This is not going to interrupt anything. But one of the positives we're going to get out of it, we're going to get some really cool sunsets in the Gulf. And I'm just thinking, is there like maybe a second sun? I mean, what are they telling me here? Cool sunsets. So that's the only two things I had on the dust subject.
Thank you for sharing that, because you just pointed out the stupidity of the news and networks, where it's like asteroid is going to hit us, blah blah blah, and but it's going to look pretty before it hits us. They try and add a little bit of like this dust storm could create havoc and an EMP and everything else like that, but the sun will look nice. Like, what are you trying to do here? You strange. Yeah, it's it turns up on the BS radar. It's like, what?
Yeah, and then the other thing, Monty, the other thing that it actually proves, because I have a hard time believing that dust particles can stay up that long for that many thousands of miles without moisture or rain or the clouds absorbing it. But let's give it to them that dust really can do that. That means that the whole conspiracy theory on chemtrails, now we're talking true, because they can make stuff a lot lighter than dust as particles, nanoparticles.
Yeah.
So this backs up the chemtrails now, without a doubt. Now, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, that makes perfect sense, because I thought of that just before you shared the idea that if there's so much cloud and dust in the atmosphere. It's like, well, that's what happens when a chemtrail if they spray it out, then it expands and covers a large portion of the ground. But now here in Australia, we have had. I was actually in school. I think it was 1986. A rare moment that I remember my childhood, ladies and gentlemen. We had a dust cloud come through, and it actually, I think 40 feet, 40 meters. It was extremely tall. It covered everything in a orange, and it only happens maybe once a century. But there was enough dust, sand, and crap basically coming from South Australia, which is next door to Victoria, and just the weather conditions, it just rolled through and then eventually dissipated. Now, that is over thousands of kilometers, but that's still over ground, and it's a perfect storm in that respect. Now, if we're supposed to believe that there's enough dust to get high enough in the atmosphere, travel tens of thousands of kilometers, turn right in Mexico, and then dump itself on the United States, that's very far-fetched. Anyway.
Totally agree.
Yes. So yeah, be careful, Bruce. You may be covered. You may have camels falling from the sky in your area.
Bruce.
Bruce, I got a bet.
Hold on there. Hold on, Jacker. I'm about to cue you up here. Let's now that the pleasantries are out of the way with this roundtable, let's move right to good and evil, because I think conceptually, if not at the level of detail, I think after this last book, I'm on the same page as Jacker now. I have to admit, this is a battle between good and evil. It's got nothing to do with the Bible, although the Bible gives an interpretation of it. But this is a battle between good and evil. And it's going on now. This is the one thing that the last book taught me. I can't deny it. No rational person can deny it. When you find out what's going on in this world, how widespread it is, how long-term the planning is to sabotage the human race. You know, I like you, Monty, caught the last 20 minutes of the round table before ours, and I would say to those guys, you might want to give evil a think. It's not all just this let's try and help each other. There really are supernatural forces, or let's say invisible forces, working against us.
Yeah, there's pushback from it being good and nice and helping everyone. That is the goal. But you may know that it's not the universe puts something in the way occasionally, but it's been weaponized and reinforced where there is a group of entities or force poking you in the eye, basically. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say, like, it's one of those things where I've been focused a little bit this week on the Albert Pike situation with the Albert Pike statue that went down, because the fact that statue was not protected, combined with the fact that the people who tore it down, we don't know how much they knew. Like, did they know anything about the conspiracy side of Albert Pike, right? Or were they just tearing it down because Confederate slave owner bad, right?
No, Steve, you're not getting it. The controllers themselves tore that statue down. Think about it. The only remaining.
Yes, I know that, but the thing is that the patsy is the guy who actually pulls the trigger. What is going on with that guy? Because the people that are doing that, like a lot of them, you can see their faces, right? These aren't like shadowy people that are going to be, that have an Ivy League promise or whatever. These guys they're doing their demonstration. It's part of their, it's part of their whole movement. They all may have radical political aspirations at best. At worst, they're just socialist freedom fighters or whatever, and they're the ones that are actually pulling the trigger. Well,
no. Go ahead.
So the thing about it is that Albert Pike, I think, is a little bit more important than the other Confederates. The other, he was a big deal, right? That, I was talking because the thing about it, it's not just that it's coming down, is that it's coming down during what we're living in as a perfect description of the Mazzini letter that many say is a hoax, but I have a feeling that it's not a hoax, and that they're just saying that it's a hoax because it was a private letter where Albert Pike writes to Mazzini talking about the 3 world wars. Now, whether you believe it was Pike or not, the point is that that piece of paper was released in like 1933 or something like that. So somebody in 1933, not that crazy to have the foresight of World War II if you're paying attention to what's going on enough, but
Yeah, well, Steve,
to
let me
predict
just,
World War III,
yeah,
and
let me,
the fact that this fits what we are dealing with now with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and what possibly can go down on the opposite side, on the right hand path, because you're watching the left hand path fighting the right hand path. Okay, they're at war, and there is a dark right hand path, and there is a light left hand path. Okay, because we all need chaos and order in our lives, and we need the purity and the balance within it as well. So my
let me just
point
interject.
is that this is World War III according to Pike's vision, and his statue came down during it.
Interesting.
Right. Well,
There may be a connection. Go ahead, Jacker.
Yeah, let me just interject. First off, we're losing the audience because they don't know what Pike's letter is, the Mazzini letter that you're talking about. But basically, he predicts
We are
3
a
worlds.
conspiracy radio station. Have a little bit of faith that somebody knows how to use a search engine seriously.
Well, okay.
Just a
all
small
right.
recap.
We
A
have
small
the
recap,
most
Jacker.
advanced
Right, but that's not my point.
conversations
That's
in
not
the
my point.
English-speaking language. This
Okay.
radio station has the most advanced conversations, especially because half the time our conversations are batshit crazy. If they can't understand a Confederate Freemason in our conspiracy theories, then nobody's listening to this station more than a day ago, because this has been Revolution Radio
I know.
since its inception.
That's not,
So people ought to effing know.
All right,
It
Steve.
was-
Steve,
that's
Steve,
not my
Steve,
point.
You're monologuing, Steve. You're monologuing.
Wow.
I know I'm monologuing because
I find myself in the unfortunate position of siding with Jacker here, dude. You haven't taken a breath in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, all
Hey,
I
Jacker,
want is
pause. Everyone pause. So Albert Pike, right? Jacker, go ahead.
Yeah, here's my 30 seconds. My point is because he is so important, and he was that symbol, and they're ripping statues down of everybody. I'm sure the Freemasons had to sign off to let that statue get pulled down, and probably ordered it, because they go, hey folks, wait a minute, we're ripping down all the statues except this one Confederate general of the Civil War, and you don't think people are going to get online and start researching it and find out what he said? We got to take one from the team, order it down. And the Freemasons said, take her down. That's what happened.
Yeah.
That would make sense. And also, I think in playing the what if, or I'm making shit up file, Pike would have agreed to it. So by pulling me down, it just pushes the cause forward.
Steve and I got into a Donnybrook in the comments section of his YouTube channel with some rather opaque commentator. And just, Steve, am I right? Was he not just a classic example of linear thinking? Well, if Theodore Herzl coined the phrase Zionism in 1897, how could Pike's letter have used the word Zionism and it was written before Herzl? I mean, this is just the kind of dumb twat that's going to sink the whole human race in the next 10 years. And there's a lot of them. They just don't realize how pre-planned, cultured, and packaged the world has been in terms of its unfoldment since about 1850.
Yeah, there seems to be a script.
Exactly. You see, the thing is that we're dealing with The information war is in the full swing of what is true amongst revealed occulted information and what is no longer true about public information. And you know what? The Mazzini letter is a perfect example of that. It was a private letter that got leaked out and then discredited as not real. And regardless of whether it was real or not, it happened to have profound messages about the future that absolutely came true. One in the near future, if it was written after World War I and then released the time it was written, it still predicted World War II, not that far away, and World War III in 2020. Okay, so that's I know I'm repeating myself, but the framing mechanism of this is very important.
The man behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz style, is they're using their script, and the writer sucks. Let's be fair.
The other thing is dated information as well. It's got dated information.
Yes,
for instance, that was the first time in the 30s when the letter supposedly was leaked out. When he talks about the Muslims and the atheist and the Zionist, if you actually take a look at all those terms, they were coming into fruition right about then, and that's right after World War I, where the first time the West seriously engaged, except for the Moors, seriously engaged Islam. So who knows? But you got a big caller on the line.
New caller. Just very quickly, I just want to acknowledge Cortek in the chat. He reminded me, I've seen this a couple of times on social media, but this is from Cortek. Seems like a good time to go destroy the Georgia so-called guide stones. Notice that statue hasn't really collapsed yet at all. So, but we have been joined by the Viking. How are you, sir?
Doing good, guys. Just listening to your. To your comments here. I want to go back to Bruce's good versus evil. I brought this up on Keith's show on Sunday. That I got some new information recently about the war between Lemuria and Atlantis. And Atlantis and Lemuria were basically an idyllic society until the Atlanteans were influenced through their so-called bloodletting rituals and the establishment of aristocracy, which then subjugated their populace through satanic worshiping, which basically, when you do a worshiping of any kind of a ceremony, you open up a portal. And the Dark Orions basically came in at that point, or have been there, but they basically became more influential, and they posed as a satanic force, and they basically were able to then consecrate and further the sociopathic, psychopathic tendency in the aristocracy to the point of oblivion. This is where they basically eventually in this conflict detonated a nuclear device which destroyed both cultures as we know it today. But so that same agenda, that the Dark Orions had in being able to manipulate the DNA and to keep humanity looped in this psychological patterning of fear and dystopia, has been brought over as the same agenda that's being used on us to this day. The same. They haven't changed their playbook much, but they basically superimposed it onto our current state of this whole satanic bloodletting and the sociopathic and trying to dominate and control and subjugate mankind and keep us in this, in these marionette strings and controlling us. And unfortunately, what's happening in the past, let's say 12 years, they're more and more every day being exposed, and this is the beginning of their downfall. That they basically are losing the battle. They're every day when they come up with these stupid, ridiculous like the the chronophobia that's happening right now is just absolutely, people are still holding on to it, which I believe is part of their hysteria. But most people are starting to wake up, and the second wave is not going to have the effect it had. This first wave had. It's going to pan out, but they're going to maintain that concept as much as they can all the way through the election. They're going to keep this alive as much as they can, and if people want to listen to it, that's up to them. But you have to really start to find your grounding. You have to find your perspective. You have to find what's best for you in your negotiation of life. This is where you have to understand that we're in between two worlds, and how you choose and how you pick and choose your battles, and where you're investing your overall conscious awareness is really important at this point in time as we shift into non-time.
I would just add that I'm in complete agreement with the analysis on Atlanta and Lemuria. That's dead on. There's a lot of Atlantis Lemuria karma going on in the world right now. A lot of it.
Yeah, well, there's some information that has been released. We now know where Atlantis is. I mean, almost like 100%. So what this guy did is he went back and he got all the writings that described what Atlantis was like. It had a mountain ridge in the north. It was elongated shaped. It had a deep valley in the middle, and then had these incredible ring cities in it. He went through Plato, or was it Socrates, Aristotle? Who was the one that described?
Pluto seems to be the Plato,
yeah,
not Pluto.
It was Plato. And by the way, the eye of the Sahara, the eye of the Sahara, which is that anomalous circle of desert right in the middle of the Sahara. Right. It looks like an eye. It's exactly where Plato theorized his Atlantis was at, and I think that it's just something that he was right about, and that we knew about for a long time, but we intentionally kept those 2 points disjointed. That we had found a location that's a perfect fit, and Plato had said it.
So the Gobi Desert, this is where they detonated their nuclear device that basically wiped out society. This is where you get the green glass. That's all from this last turn of events, and it also went from there are regions, but the main region that I know of is from Australia to Antarctica. That whole area was a continent. And then Lemuria was South America to the Hawaiian Islands to California. They covered that whole region, and then they had different outposts and different sectors around the world that were habitable. Because after the Great War, as they call it, the Alban race and a lot of the Antiguan, which are the Dogman race, basically in the Nordics. Had to go to their stronghold. They had a stronghold above Siberia, and that's where you get the whole Nordic infusion going into northern Europe, where it's all blonde hair and blue eye. That's all the Nordic, because at that time it was tropical, but then it turned into an ice age, and they had to migrate down. So that's why you got the swath. Anywhere on this planet, you got dark hair and dark eyes, except that swath in northern Europe, which is a migration of the Nordics.
Right. Well, on the Atlantis thing, what this guy described, he went through and he Googled, mapped basically the Azores, which are actually the top of the mountains of Atlantis, and he actually does a Google Earth of the seabed, how it's connected. Portugal's claiming it; they're claiming all the wealth, and then he went into all of the gold and the temples and everything that was actually on Atlantis. And that's what lies underneath. And that's why there's such a vicious battle between the Portuguese, United States. Everybody's jumped in on the fight saying, no. And they go, oh, no, law of the sea. The continental shelf extends. The guy's Globebusters 2. So he breaks that down. And as far as the green glass, quickly, So in my world, a lot of people believe that was one of the windows of heaven that broke open on the dome over the earth. Just saying. Go ahead.
The Lemuria Atlantis conflict and what we're fighting over here is we all know a lot of things about our imagination.
Does anybody else hear a knocking? A little knocking?
I did hear that. Yeah, Jacker, I did.
I don't know what that is, but that's going to drive people crazy.
Is that it? Are you hearing that?
Yeah.
My apologies. My arm was tapping on something near the mic.
Got a good mic.
Yes, it's a great mic.
I would talk to your therapist about that though, Steve.
Yeah.
Or you're just itching to play with your band. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, quickly.
So the Lemurians, Lemurian civilization was very they were more on the abstract side of things. They were kind of like new agey kind of people. As a layman's term for it. So like if you know people that are exploring like all the stuff about like consciousness and energy work and things like that, their civilization was much more based on those things, almost more passive. I would say that the left-hand path had a strong connection to Lemuria. And like I said earlier, there's a dark and a light side, or good versus evil, if you will.
Right. That's what Bruce said.
Yeah. So there were dark occultists in Lemuria. They had their particular kind of magic. Now Atlantis.
Steve, that's old stuff. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear what's happening now. What Bruce is talking about.
Excuse me.
Okay, you take 30 seconds. I'll take 30 seconds.
That jumped up on us.
Okay, everyone just chillax. Steve, can you condense what you're about to say, and then we'll let HiJacker.
Monty, as the host of this roundtable, are you taking a knee? Are you taking a knee, Monty, or are you going to host and police this roundtable?
Well, I just did, and then you tore down my authority, Bruce. Anyway, look, just yeah. A bit of what?
So
go ahead, Steve.
Atlantis is like the technocrats. They're far more left-brained. The Atlanteans. So they were the ones working with the elements and being much more of the quote-unquote scientist about things. And the Lemurians and the Atlanteans had very equivalent power. You wouldn't think so because we see our world of science and technology now. You don't see as much of that power of the Lemurians because A, it's less obvious. B, I think the Lemurians lost that war harder than the Atlanteans did.
Okay, HiJacker.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about the fairies fighting the gnomes and the trolls, the troll war. No, let's talk about something important.
That's in the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, right. But well, in one way you can put it into how was it Mark Twain? History doesn't repeat; it rhymes. And so we're seeing sort of, I think Viking was sort of explaining where we're seeing sort of the same loops unfold. Now, the thing is, I would put forward that someone is trying to control the narrative of that loop, and it's not natural. Right.
Yeah, Mark Twain, he was one of a kind, but on the good and evil, and it's only going to take a couple seconds. I only talk about important stuff, and it's short. He's right. So we got this classic battle in which it appears that the evil forces, like what Vikings talking about, they're running out of time and they're pushing it. But now we're coming to the principle that Bruce talked about, in which genocide, karma. So now everybody's figuring out through the internet which side everybody's on. All wars are banker wars. And so now you got guys actually in the dark system, and they're realizing, wait a minute, you want me to help you like kill off a couple billion people, start riots, murder, gang rape? I mean, am I really gonna start to participate fully in this? It's not gonna be just like, I didn't do it, I was just a CIA agent. No, it's getting to the point now to where people are saying, wait a minute, I go this far. and I create a riot that kills 500 people, and I participate in this, am I damning my soul? So, yeah, they got the plans of what they're going to do, but it's another thing for these guys to actually go full length genocide. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like if you want to use that platform, you've got the Antifa and Black Lives Matter that actually are the minions of Satan because they are performing that very duty.
Yes. Yes, good call, Viking. Good call. Hey, may I just add that I may have found work in Costa Rica? I got an email today, and I don't know how these people found me, but they need an English technical writer. And they said they don't care if I have my papers to live here. I can just invoice them through my wife. Isn't that cool?
What tech?
It's very cool.
I haven't looked at their website yet. I mean, it's not big money. It's like $20 an hour, right? Which is about a third of what I bill out at in North America. But for here, it's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. It'd be about 40 hours a month.
Is that that shows that, like, because I'm not trying to put down Costa Rica, but why not have a tech sector in Costa Rica?
Yeah.
And like, any news on hemp being pushed forward?
Yeah, we're waiting for Alvarado to make a ruling on that. He's getting some pushback from one of the departments in government. As you can well imagine, Latin America is very bureaucratic, right? But as soon as they green light it, I have people ready to go and invest down here. I mean, I got like access to about 200 hectares, 500 acres.
Toilet paper, dude.
I want to do a complete project too. I don't just want to sell harvested hemp by the kilogram. I want to build a tin wall factory in San Jose or Alajuela and produce fabric or something. I want an end product.
Do you know what I came up with? Because I roll my own tobacco and I get this product called Raw, and it's hemp paper. And right now the organic hemp paper is gone. They can't. It's not. So you can actually produce rolling papers from hemp.
Yeah. I know the brand actually. Raw.
So you get the equipment and machinery to create, and you get a contract from about 4 or 5 different companies worldwide that you could produce hemp paper.
Yeah. So it's in the works, Monty. I'm just taking things one day at a time. Very grateful for the grace, space, and peace I live in. As I talk to my son and my friends and you guys here living in the thick of it in the United States. My deepest empathy, by the way, I can be a little cavalier sometimes about what's going on there. And it's serious, man. I mean, it's serious. And, my deepest empathy.
We have about 5 minutes till the break. I have a question for the roundtable, as well as people in chat, and just for the man on the street. We keep saying that the League of Dark Hats or Black Hats or the Deep State, whatever label you want to give them, but there's a running sort of statement that they're running out of time. How much time, and why are they running out of time? Is that the right question? Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this, but
yes.
Go ahead, Viking.
So basically, they're all, as I mentioned before, they all have a noose around their neck because they're being exposed for the atrocities, the seditiousness, and the treasonous nature of all of their all their activities from
the internet
from Ukraine to Libya to Haiti. And all the just the moratoriums and the just the pushback they put on us financially, trillions of dollars. I mean, trillions of dollars have gone out every administration, outside of our border to their pockets of infiltration throughout the world, and they're being exposed. They literally. I mean, Trump has every, Trump team, say his team, his cabinet. Has all the information necessary to bring him down, and they know this. They know that that they have, especially with the latest firing of this attorney in southern New York. He was basically the gatekeeper of all of 9/11 and all this nefarious activities that he was guarding, and he got fired. So that tells you right now that they're about ready to dive in deep into Hillary's files. And what's happening is that this, as I mentioned, that there's a wall. November is the wall. This train's going to hit this wall, and everything's going to be absolutely mayhem for the deep state and the Democratic Party.
So hold on a sec there.
Go ahead.
So what they're gonna try and do there then is they're gonna try and create equivocal noise. And so they want a full financial collapse, and they want so much tangential chaos that we're not going to focus on it. That's what the Team Dark is trying to do now. Go ahead, Jacker.
This is why they're already starting the second wave. I mean, the second wave is coming, guys. Yeah. It's coming. Oh my God, fear. And they're starting. As you pointed out, they're starting rationing, and it's going to happen all over again.
Mm-hmm. Right? Did you hear what President Trump said today, which no president in the history of all the presidents has ever said about another president?
No.
Did you hear it?
No. Go ahead.
I think
Obama was treasonous.
Yeah.
Obama was a traitor. He was a traitor. He committed treason multiple times with energy behind what he said. And the interviewer stopped and could not hardly believe what President Trump was saying. And he says, "Sir, or what are you really saying?" And he doubles down. He triples down. He committed treason. Very treasonous.
He would have said that if he didn't have the evidence to back it up. Believe me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But actually, to say another president has committed treason and is treasonous multiple times in a public interview like that, I mean, good Lord, that's really what we all need to be talking about tonight. That, and then Trump talking about the military-industrial complex, and then all these generals going against him. I mean, we got a hell of a fight coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think he's also said. I think he's either said or agreed with the idea that Comey is treasonous, and I think a couple other people maybe as well.
But you got Strzok, you've got Page, you've got Orr. I mean, there's a. It's the usual suspects. Everybody has their name on the list, and he's going to go down one at a time.
Jacker's absolutely right that none of them are the president. Yeah, this is. But the thing is that, man, accusing anybody within an administration of treason. I mean, like, when was the last time that happened? Maybe Iran-Contra. Maybe like Ollie North was accused at the very least.
No, none of that. Never.
Not even Ollie North. Okay, so so think about that. It's not just the president. It's the first time an administration has been called treasonous, more or less.
Right. It's like on the Senate floor, you're not allowed to use the word liar. You can say untruth. There are like rules. Yeah. Trump is just like breaking all these rules, and I'm telling you, when I heard that today, I'm thinking, man, they're gonna kill him. They're really gonna. This is one hell of a fight.
I've been asked to fly back home and personally make the arrest on Trudeau. I'm considering it if this COVID thing lifts.
Take some boot polish with you, and you can say, "Do you want to blackface up now?" Come on, yeah.
Let me give a little bit of
Steve. We've got about 30 seconds.
Got it. Okay, we'll talk about it on the other side of the break.
So it's just before the music chimes in. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. I have been joined by Bruce MacDonald, Steve Zerilath, HiJacker. Is it the HiJacker or just HiJacker? And the Viking. And I'm sure Cortek will probably pop in later. So
take my leave, gentlemen. It's been fun.
Thank you, Bruce, for being with us.
Thank you, Bruce.
We will see everyone on the other side, except for Bruce, because he's going to Dreamtime. Welcome back to Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. This is obviously Studio A on Revolution Radio. Thank you for listening, and I love you all, but from afar. We're all connected as one, so I don't have to go around hugging everyone, because I think in lockdown you're not supposed to. Here in Victoria, they're thinking about bringing in masks, so I think they're trying to push the whole second wave narrative. But as I said at the start of the last hour, it doesn't help when you have 10,000 people gather in one spot. And it gives maybe they didn't infected everybody, but it gives the impression that there is no danger, and here we are. If you enjoyed the last hour, please go to the website freedomslip.com or revolution.radio and donate what you can so we can continue having Studio A and B on air, because Revolution Radio is 100% listener supported and 100% volunteer, and we're doing a service.
That's important, Monty. Don't go over that. Realize the people out there. That's how we get it. It's almost like a ministry, like a church. You pass the plate type thing. Mm-hmm. We only stay on the air if you like free will, openly give, and you don't get anything back. So just remember that. And that's what all of us are doing. All of the hosts, they're free will giving. We're not getting any money out of it at all. So yeah.
Yes, and once you're at the website, you can buy merchandise. So if you want to wear T-shirts or caps, and people wonder what is that, you can tell them, and then pop into the chat room and hang out with awesome people. SJ's there, Flippy, Spread Love 911 just joined the chat. I don't think I've seen that handle before, so I like that. That's pretty good.
And then Monty, you got a website, and you're recording this, so you're going to have it on YouTube or something, right? Archive it.
Yes, my YouTube channel is Wafer Thin Entertainment, and this show will probably be going up because it's gone from dial-up to broad or NBN. It's 10 times faster. It freaked me out when I went up last week. Like, wow, 3 minutes, cool. And so that's all good. So yeah, just subscribe to the channel and just watch the shows, and that helps me out because I'm heading towards.
How are your subscriptions, Ronnie? I mean, you had like 13 last time or something, or.
At the start of the year, I had 2 subscribers. As of today, I have 216. Wow. I've broken 200, and yeah, every little bit helps. And
yeah, exponential growth.
Yeah, it's a slow. It's good though because it's not instantaneous, and then I can fall down. It's that slow build and sort of earn it, that type of thing. We've also been joined by Cortek. How are you, my northerner friend? Well, you're north from me. All right, that's what that is. Or not. Cortek, are you there?
Is he on mute?
No, he's not. So we can't hear you, Cortek.
Sorry.
Now he's sorry. Well, you better be, my friend. It's an audio medium, you fool. Okay. Yes. Chicago Brew, you've just been added. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about, it's a little bit of a repeat for anybody that was listening to me last night. Just to make a mention about something that we can take advantage of through our awareness of it is that we're in Neptune retrograde in astrology right now, and that started right after the summer solstice, and with the way that and Neptune stays retrograde for like 160 days, and so right now we're in a period of time where it's shortly after every summer solstice for the next like maybe 2 years, you could say. It'll be right in the pocket of summer solstice energy. You end up having a retrograde that's going to last into the Thanksgiving season, like end of November, right? And so this year in particular, this is a good post-solstice time of for everybody to get introspective, to have illusions shattered, and things like that. There's a lot of breakdowns, and you have to look at things going on with the planets to see where you build with from there. But there's a lot of healing that can go on right now, you know. And I'm usually pretty chill with Neptune retrograde because it's in my natal chart.
Oh yeah.
Well,
now, interesting enough, I was about to introduce. I was just going to quickly say, even if you have
somebody angry.
if you're not a fan of astrology, just watch what Steve said in the mainstream or the mainstream news, and it unfolds. You can see what's unfolding there. It's kind of fascinating. We have been joined by Chicago Brew. Lord Brew, sir, how are you?
Yes, I just had a question. If I didn't enjoy the last hour, can I contribute money to the network just to get better programming, please?
Yes, yes, you
Does that
can.
work too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's two studios, so you can always go to B. But don't
I-
do
I-
that right now.
Is Chicago Brew throwing a gauntlet down?
Pardon? I was making
Are
a
you
joke.
throwing down a gauntlet?
Comedically, he was.
Yeah, well, you can melt the gauntlet and then put that into the till, I guess. So anyway, let me refer to Viking. Viking, do you have any more to expand on the A.G. Berman firing story? Because there is more to the story than you kind of suggested there.
Look, go ahead. I mean, if you have more of the story, please tell.
Well, the biggest part of the story is that A.G. Berman was not just fired, he refused to step down. He refused to leave. He's like, no, I'm not
Who's
fired.
Berman? Who's Berman Brew?
This is Attorney General Berman out of New York State.
Right, I know
Now,
that.
what
Go ahead.
is Berman?
The Southern District.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, there's a lot of things going on in New York and other states as well. But we'll step back about a year and a half. Mayor de Blasio's wife and the $1 billion that she can't account for of New York City taxpayer money. So this is a big issue that's going on right now, and they're like, "You're not protecting the state's citizens, the taxpayers. Where's De Blasio's? Where's this money? This $1 billion, among other things going on." So they stepped up and they fired him, and he says, "No, I'm not fired." And that's the big story. A lot of these AGs across the nation are going to be held accountable. They're going to be scrutinized because there is missing money. There's all sorts of things going on, from all the nefarious stuff we ever hear on this network and others. And none of these AGs are protecting, doing their jobs, what you would think they're there to do. They're letting the criminals get away while the good people are getting slaughtered. So that's the expansion.
They're all bought and paid for sure.
Well, we have this.
And not only is he protecting, he was protecting everybody else, but now he's protecting his own ass.
I just like how he acted like a 4-year-old. No, I'm not going to go. It's like, really? I mean, that's a red flag. It's like you get fired. You can't just say, nah, I've got my fingers crossed. Like, you're a professional.
He was asked to resign. He said, no, I'm not going to resign. And then he was fired.
Still, I just like the idea of him being a 4-year-old. So, but
it's funny that way.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the big thing is we got 130 days before the election. We got two presidential conventions, national conventions. We got talk of a third or a second wave. I mean, we got really rough waters that we're coming into. I mean, when you see United States Senator Chuck Schumer actually come out and on the Senate floor, or maybe it wasn't the Senate floor, maybe it was a news conference, maybe it was in the Russell building where I used to work where I was a strategist for a senator. I recognize the building. That's why I'm saying that. So he came out and he basically said that he wants full investigation. He wants Berman to come to his committees and to testify on 3 different committees on exactly what's going on in the next couple of days. And Chuck Schumer did that today. So there is definitely, and coupled with that, with Trump basically saying that President Obama is a traitor and has committed treason multiple times in an interview, I think we're looking at literally a full-scale civil war. And I'm really wondering, personally, whether we actually are going to have elections. I know everybody says this every single time, but I know they control the vote, and President Trump seems to be so hardened in his position to where if something like the great and mighty king did do something to us 3 days before the election and gored our eyes out, but killed the power so we couldn't have an election, I don't even think President Trump would even, I don't think he would even stop it, because he knows the country's almost over.
We've already laid tracks that China's going to drop an EMP on us and kill our power. So they've already laid tracks for that.
Who said that? Where's that?
Past week that China may do an EMP on us. Anyone?
Really?
So
Yeah, they were
must
talking.
have
Yeah, they were talking about that. I think that we have not too much to worry about that right now, because I think we're getting what would be an appropriate level of threat assessment right now. So, naturally you're going to be a little scared, because you're thinking of like, oh my God, they've got the capability to do it right now. I think we're looking at how quickly we could beat their capabilities at this point, and we're kind of working off of that to build the political support to justify budgeting for that defense program.
Well, you just gotta remember, just under 2 years ago, they were saying North Korea was going to EMP us. Remember all the discussion? There's 9 different points that all they got to do is set off atomic bombs in 9 different strategic locations above the United States, and then it would knock out all the power grids. But you have to do 9, and whatever. See, it's whoever the enemy is of the day. They're going to tell us. They're going to try and lay some tracks to put fear into us that this could happen. But they're basically setting up.
Well, look,
Whoever-
here's the thing. It's
whoever
like
does it will-
everything else the media does. The media does 2 things to control you. It talks about a threat, and then it exaggerates the threat. COVID-19 is real. Its threat has been exaggerated. The violent left is real. The threat has been exaggerated. Murder hornets are real. The threat has been exaggerated, right? However,
I would go as far as to say it's been weaponized.
Yes, it's been weaponized, but what I'm doing is that I'm using the soft language, because as much as I don't have a problem scaring the normies, I also don't need them to go into a mental shutdown.
No, but they know that all this has been weaponized to create that fear, and then they can get a handle on what's really happening.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
when they hear the word weaponized, they're not gonna know what that means, because nobody understands, like, oh, how do you fight a mind war?
Yeah, but the thing is, very quickly, I'll pass the stick to you in a minute, HiJacker. The thing is, with with all the Black Lives Matter protests, and now a spike in infections, that somewhere in the subconscious is like, hang on, that doubt is growing, and so it's kind of backfiring. I do have a political question, but I'm waiting for the right time for it. But HiJacker, go ahead.
Yeah, well, my point is that forget about North Korea or that China's going to do the EMP. Forget about whatever kind of method or narrative that they're building. My point is it looks like there's a genuine, organic, real life civil war in the upper echelons of our government. I mean, you got people firing shots. I mean, the verbiage just for a president to call another president a traitor and treasonous, something that's never happened before.
That's true.
And yes.
That is like
that was a direct hit. That was not over the bow. That was a direct hit.
I can bring in my question.
I think we're going to be seeing a display of precisely why certain things couldn't go through Supreme Court channels, because right now with what they are doing with John Roberts, what is likely being done about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who may not be alive, we may have a defunct judiciary branch of government, which is directly associated to why we're having treason right now, because people are thinking of treason merely in terms of Russiagate. And a lot of them are not connecting the dots of the broader conspiracy that we're looking at, because of everything being uncovered by the former CIA chief who's now running the State Department.
Now, here's my question, my political question. With the election that is scheduled for 130 days, is it the 6th of November or the 5th of November?
3rd.
3rd of November, thank you.
131 days.
131, right. Yes. Now, if we follow that there will be an election, from this day till then, there is a certain timeline of events that have to unfold. And this has been going on for decades, maybe a couple of centuries. And so for that to happen, because both nominees have been picked or whatever, has anyone got news on the debates? Because I believe what we're talking about is that's going to be a focal point. If you've got Biden and Trump on a stage, who knows what's going to come out? And from a comedic point of view, Trump's just going to destroy Biden because he has no idea where he is. But anyone got news on the debates?
Yeah,
will there be debates? Go ahead.
Biden's position, real quick, is he doesn't want any debates. He says the debates are not necessary. Everybody knows who President Trump is, basically saying he's a racist, everything else. There doesn't even need to be, it's like settled science. That's their position. But also on the Supreme Court, which Steve brought up, very interesting. Justice Anthony Scalia, the Associate Justice, of course, he was murdered in Texas. Whatever happened down there, we don't know. But his replacement was Gorsuch. Turns out Gorsuch, along with John Roberts, his name shows up on the Alito Express. And what did he do in the last couple of days? He removed a foundational, institutional pillar of our civilization. In this one particular case about transgender and LGBTQ. What he did, what Scalia would never do. Now you got to realize this guy was supposed to replace Scalia. Scalia would have ripped this thing to pieces, and yet he voted the other way and threw it. So that now, basically the court case is this. A small business had a person working for him. He was in customer service or something, dealt with all the different people. And then one day, the guy comes in dressed up in a dress with lipstick like a woman. And the business owner says, "What are you doing? You're destroying my business. You cannot do that. You cannot show up at work dressed like a woman." Anyways, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. Gorsuch said, "Yes, he can. Yes, he can." There you go. Go ahead.
No, that's actually a good thing, because if he's allowed to dress any way he wants going into a business, then I'm allowed to dress any way I want when I go into a business, and I don't like masks.
Well,
There's a big story to all that. They changed the language. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm talking about the same thing anymore. Can we move on? If you want to, let's talk first. I'm going to ping pong a couple things.
I don't think capitalism is going to die because everybody has to tolerate trannies. I think just because trannies have been a big part of what has been the display of things on television, it's like I said, violent left.
I'm a handyman. I have a handyman business, and my employee decides he's a nudist.
One at a time.
Shows up to my...
I don't have any problems.
One at a time.
I don't think anybody needs to have any problems with, a guy who just happens to be a tranny, as long as it's not about forcing other people to be a trans. Unless you're telling me it wasn't just that he was dressed up like a woman, but he was dressed up like a lewd.
We're talking about culture, but what, Brew? You lost the business.
We are talking about culture, and it's not the government's place to define culture.
There is also a thing. I would like to hear from Brew. Go ahead.
I really want to move on from this, but when we just suggest in Steve's manner of compliance here, if I owned a handyman business and I had employees, and one day one of my handymen decided he was a nudist and showed up to my customer's house with his tool belt and nothing else, I think we have an issue. But now it goes to the Supreme Court. They say, that's okay.
Everyone take a breath. Everyone take a breath.
Yeah.
Stop talking. Hello. Stop. Hello.
That's not about
talking.
Your business.
Stop
That's
talking means stop
law.
talking. You're cutting off each other. It's bad radio. No, I can't understand what you're saying. So who knows what the list is going?
Finish.
Yes.
That's fine. I didn't feel like letting him, finish what was effectively a direct insult to the point that I was making, as opposed to just, making a point, because guess what? That's absurd, because there's obscenity laws, public obscenity laws on the books that the business has to conform to, as opposed to just making a corporate decision, if you will, to say, no, you can't.
Yes. Now you can you
Come
also
on, the friggin' world's burning. Let's talk about something important.
You can use any, but it doesn't matter what, if you are employed and you have to wear a uniform, you have to wear the uniform.
There's that as well.
And also with handyman, safety and everything else, like there are regulations for health and safety. Wow, yeah. I'm making a point with health and safety. 2020, yo.
Hey, anybody that's actually had a job here knows that a lot of businesses, whether small or large, have things like criteria for their employees. You must be clean shaven. You must have good hygiene. You must this, you must that. So look, look, the whole Supreme Court is corrupt, all right? What we got coming up here's the bottom line. We got SCOTUS Gate coming up. Supreme Court SCOTUS Gate is coming up because the whole thing is corrupt. And this also bounces into Obama and the Obama impeachment. There's many things Obama can be impeached on, okay? Not only he fleeced America of trillions of dollars, he went and he raped the Ukraine of trillions of dollars, billions, multi-billions into the trillions. He did that. And not only that, with Libya and all sorts of things that he did. But you know what's really a bottom line issue here? That the Obamas aren't who they said they are. We were elected people that lied about their names. They lied about, Michelle Obama being Michael LaVaughn Robinson. The first day in office, as soon as Obama got into office, he signed an executive order sealing his records along with his entire family's records. That those children, pretty much for the most part, aren't even his. So right there and then, he was an imposter that got lied to America and went into there. So therefore, that alone, he should be able to be impeached. Okay. And remember this: once they impeach Obama, everything he did, his Supreme Court appointments, everything, any executive order, all goes away. We can have a reset.
So basically, in the bigger picture, we are seeing someone's taking corruption to the mark, if that's the best way of explaining it, where the corruption's been exposed, and there'll be a change for the better.
Oh, it's not corruption. We're in a civil war, Monty.
Yeah, but
the depths, well, here's the thing: it's the depths of secrecy over things that that were settled long ago, were not meant to be kept as secrets or were meant to be disclosed, have been through continued multi-layers of secrecy, held them all together. Well, because they'll have those private meetings like Senate Intelligence Committee or whatever, and they're just like, well, yeah, we'd like to, release the JFK papers, but if we have to release the JFK papers, it exposes these CIA papers that we can't have the public know about yet because we can't have today I guess we'd use the Russians, because we can't let the Russians know about the existence of those CIA papers, because then they could blackmail the United States and the global courts, or some convoluted answer like that, right? Yeah. So the interlocking secrets is what has created a problem so deep that if we don't destroy the prior president with the utmost of treason charges, we will never be rid of it, and our people will continue.
Let's talk about what's going to happen in 130 days. That's the most important thing.
Yes, Viking, I think you wanted to share.
Well, no, I mean, the secrecy it's the art of subterfuge. They're burying their secrets in the subterfuge, and how they, how they negotiate the mindset of mankind, especially here in the United States, with their false flags and their lies, and their deception. It is an art form in the stratagem of war, and we are at war. We're at a very interesting precept of having this all come unglued. I'm going to make one statement here.
So
I want to make one statement here about these.
How's Trump going to win this thing?
What?
Yeah, HiJacker, let Viking finish, and then I'll try and get us back on track if we are on the right track.
So these conventions, you can see how the deep state took a major campaign against it by, first of all, calling curfew, which had disbanded the lineup. But also they were saying that there were blocks of seats that were empty. So he didn't mention it, but I believe that the DNC actually were buying these seats to create the illusion that his conventions are failing. But what happened was Fox News got the highest rating ever in its history with people tuning into the convention.
Yeah,
so when Q says this will never happen again, believe me, they're going to have thousands of people in backup, to fill these seats. That will never happen again.
Yeah. I saw reports that I saw reports that protesters were blocking exits and entry points, and so people that were trying to get in weren't able to, and that's why there seemed to be empty seats. Now, recently I saw this from Racerfist in Phoenix. That didn't cut it, and people got in. And there was it was like a chapel, one of those mega churches. It was completely packed, and there was thousands of people outside. Now Joe Biden can get about 10 people, and so we're watching 2016 unfold again. Now, my question is, the debates is a perfect example. Like if they don't have the debates, that's going to make Trump look better, because the optics is that Biden has no idea where he is and he's falling apart. And if he's up on stage where all of this, what we've been talking about, can be brought up and they'll go back and forth, but Biden has a problem of remembering which one is sister and which one is wife. And so, that's the level of intelligence there.
Right. So what we're talking about the Tulsa speech, the Trump rally on Saturday, that basically Trump went down. Somebody had bought up 2/3 of the seats, or some people believe it was TikTok, or something that did something. Fox News.
Hold on.
Let me just
hold on.
This whole
they don't buy the.
Hey, what? Go ahead, Brew.
I just want to clear this up. They don't buy the seats. People put in a reservation, but it's like general admission. Once you get there, it's first come, first serve. But what ended up happening is a lot of people were there. People were reluctant, didn't know what was going to go on. But a lot of people got in. The first people that got in were good to go. But then the BLM buses and the Antifa buses and other hoodlums and whatnot and disruptors showed up. And then they started causing this cluster jam over by the gates and where people were the entrances. And that's when people started to get cut off because security couldn't tell the good from the bad. They were setting off metal detectors everywhere. So they had to cut it off at some point. But they don't purchase them. But they think they gloated because they punked the Trump campaign with all these TikTokers reserving seats, and that his campaign are a bunch of doofs because they couldn't realize, wow, we got 1 million people or 800,000 to 1 million people signing up. So they ended up looking like doofs. But in the end, it did work out for them because Fox News and the ratings and so on and so forth. But you got to remember, they have a captive audience. No one's got any place to go anymore. They're locked in their homes.
Was that the second? That was the second rally, wasn't it?
First rally ever.
That was the first rally. No. But listen,
that was the first
turnout. All things considered, that was a pretty good turnout. Now, let me tell you something about Arizona. Just before I came on here, I listened to his 90-minute speech to Turning Point. This was all young people. And like the Tulsa rally had some great stuff on it, like him talking about how he was walking down the ramp and stuff, and him in full charm, right? and he made a couple of interesting statements, that you're always looking for. You're looking for the breadcrumbs. The turning point speech that he gave to those kids is way better than the Tulsa speech. I highly recommend that you go listen to the turning point speech. And he has like 3 young conservatives there. The last one's a black woman talking because she's involved with Turning Point USA, and she's involved with the congressional campaign of Ilhan Omar's opponent. So that's really good. And then Trump made a few other statements about what his administration plans to do, specifically about cancel culture and all these other things, with basically the attack on the soul of the nation. And he spoke that directly to these kids. And if he succeeds with everything that he said, we're all going to be really effing happy people, including and especially the classical liberals.
Right. The big
Go ahead,
takeaway.
Viking. I mean, sorry, HiJacker, go ahead.
Okay, the big takeaway of what happened in Tulsa, and Brew is right. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they sent in their troops, they gunked up everything, and they basically there's some sort of command that went out, because there was a lot more people that could have got in, but at some point they said nope, shut it down. The big takeaway is, once you got political activists, zealots, and I know this because I protested abortion clinics. I mean, I was a hardcore. I was the guy in the sign that showed up. I mean, I was so hardcore. I went to the other side, and when they would come up with their slogans, I would yell out, "Yeah, we have a right to kill babies. Don't you know that?" I mean, I would flip it around. I was really hardcore. But when you get those two kinds of political forces together, you're real close to like a civil war, a color revolution, where somebody, a devious element, get like in the Ukraine, they put snipers on both sides and they start killing people from both sides. So that's how close we are. Go ahead.
You know what you had, HiJacker? You had election meddling, because AOC, or Cortez, she actually said she helped organize them to do this punking and reserving the tickets and so on and so forth. And Black Lives Matter is declaring themselves as a political party, basically. So what you have is election meddling. These are criminal offenses.
AOC actually has said as well that she wants all businesses to stay closed until after the election, so it makes Trump look bad. Who cares about the economy collapsing and everything else like that? But, she seems so smart. Go ahead.
You know what AOC said in this past couple of days? She said that Latinos are basically black, and that now Latinos should shine with the black people. And she's getting a kickback from the Latino population saying, hell no, just because we got some color in our skin, we're not going to be lumped up in that same group. You're joking. But yet a year ago, she made it very clear that she was Latino or Hispanic, and now she's changing her tune. Now she wants to be thought of as a black person. This is how insane these people are.
I think the Latino population is gonna come on heavy duty for Trump in the election. I think that one of the things that backfires is that some of the underlying tension between the black and the Hispanic community, has been inflamed a bit, and it's got the Hispanic community really scared, but not in the way that makes them angry at Trump, because they get it and they understand. There's a very different mindset, Puerto Rican Americans and Dominican Americans and stuff like that, and what it's like interfacing with other elements of the inner city.
No, that's a good point, Steve. No,
yeah.
You got a great point. Because people don't know it unless you actually read about it and study it. But blacks and Latinos, I'm telling you now, they hate each other more than Latinas hate whites or black hate whites. I mean, to talk about prejudice levels. It's really high up there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the
And
big
if you
point-
notice
no.
that by and large, you're not really hearing too much pandering to the Hispanic American community the way we used to, like, a
Well,
year
that's
or
why
two
AOC is
ago.
changing the language to people of color. They're changing that. That's how they're
Well,
changing it. But
they're
the big
changing it from
point,
people. Yeah, they're changing it from people of color, so that way, they can hide the fact that they're giving up on the Latino population, because I think the Latino population, like, if the Democrats don't have, like, an immigration thing about them, or whatnot, they're gonna vote conservative. These guys,
right? Well,
they're very Catholic, and Trump's very good with Catholics.
right. Well, the big point for Viking
support
is
Catholics.
right. Viking. So how is President Trump? We know the deep state controls the vote. How is President Trump going to pull this election out? Go ahead, Viking. I really want to get it from you. How is he going to win this thing?
I think he's going to start disclosing and declassifying these dockets to start the arrest. I think he's really going to start to expose their underbelly over the next 4 months, and they're going to start to really see that the Democratic Party is just riddled with dry rot. I just want to make one point here. I'm noticing the algorithms over the past week where you're getting a lot of these African American women of status, like Kamala Harris, starting now to vie for vice president. I believe the ticket's going to start out with a African American as a woman as vice president with Joe Biden, but I believe you're going to see it switch. I think you're going to see an African American woman go up against Trump as a candidate for presidency. I believe that's going to be their only strategy to pull this off, because they're going to go for the female, being subjugated, and we need to have a rise in power. We need our stance in government, and that's going to be the only way that they're going to be able to really create a ticket at this point. So Biden, I believe by August you're going to see him backtrack and either fall into a VP position, and you're going to see Kamala Harris or Susan Rice or some other notoriety in this agenda take precedence. I really feel that's going to be an African American woman on the frontline ticket.
Let me throw this out there as a caveat. Kamala Harris is not an African American woman. Her father was Jamaican and her mother was Hindu Indian. And when she was first elected to the Senate, the Hindus came out and accepted her and gave her a big parade and a big celebration for being the first Hindu Indian in the Senate or in Congress.
Yeah,
and then later on, she decided she started going to the black and whatever. And next thing you know, she's considering herself black, but she is not black and African American. She's the Jamaican and the Hindu, and even her father was like, she's a big fat liar. Okay,
so my retort was, she does have African American lineage, and I was more or less referring to that. Yes, you're right. She is a hybrid, but still, she shows more as an African American than she does a Hindu.
A racist doesn't look at you and says, oh, you Jamaican, you're my equal. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. To a racist, a Jamaican looks like a Nigerian and a Kenyan and a Tasmanian. Pick your country in Africa, pick your region of Africa. And so as far as being an American who is dark, somebody who is a white supremacist or somebody who is against black people, like a black degenerist, I guess you could call it. Like, they're going to treat a Jamaican the same as they're going to treat anyone from anywhere else.
And that goes back to
let me just say a woman of color will take the front runners. Yep.
Yeah, I was about to say that sort of goes back to the push of the, instead of saying black, that you're going to go to a person of color, POC, woman of color, yeah, a person of color, and that will include anyone that has tan or brown skin.
So that's my prediction. A woman of color taking the presidential seat in the election.
And Asians apparently fall under that as well, and they look pretty pale. Points out how racism is completely stuffed. At the end of the day, they're trying to push a whole, white people bad. Go ahead, Brew.
Well, how about the fact that Kamala Harris's parents, neither one of them were American citizens when she was born, and then they went to Canada and lived in Canada for years, and then they came back to the United States, but neither one of them were American citizens. So technically, Kamala Harris isn't an American citizen, natural-born citizen. So we could throw that in there. See, this is all going to get skipped over again, just like it did with Obama, because no one really questioned what happened with Obama. See, his mother might have been the CIA agent. I'm forgetting her name offhand, but she was not able to have children. Okay, so if she actually gave birth to Barack Obama or Barry Soetoro at the time, out of the States in some other nation, he would have technically been a U.S. citizen. No. But it turns out that his mother, alleged mother, couldn't have children. So him being born, whether it be Kenya or Morocco or wherever, he is still under question of what his origins are.
Oh, that's pretty good, Viking. So you got Freeman. You got this guy Freeman. He does these podcasts. And so this falls right in line with what you're talking about. Freeman swears that Barack Obama is, and he actually goes, when Barack Obama went to Egypt and he got the tour of the pyramids and he came up with Akhenaten. I don't know who the pharaoh was. But anyways, President Obama looked at him and he said to the guy live on TV, he said, he looks just like me, this bust. It was a bust of this pharaoh.
Yeah, I've seen that photo.
So they took half of the face of Obama, cut it out, and put the bust on the other side, this Freeman guy. And damn if it wasn't a perfect match. So was he cloned from a mummy? I mean,
well, that fuels the whole clone conspiracy and everything else like that, which I find out fascinating. I do have a question to Cortek because he has been quiet. Cortek, are you there?
Hello, am I here?
Yes, good. I have a very quick question. How boring is Australian politics?
I don't mind the fact of not elevating politicians to celebrity status. I don't mind not talking about them. I think that should.
Yeah, but compared to like the last an hour and 3/4, we couldn't have a conversation for 2 hours. Like, this guy's an idiot. Yep, it's very boring. So, and mind you, America.
I don't even know who voted in the guy who's in there currently. Everyone hates him. No one really saw him on the form. He just popped up out of the back rooms.
That's mainly because the opposition sucked. And sort of that was the idea. That was the idea with Clinton and Trump. The idea was that Trump is so terrible that Hillary would sweep in, and that's probably why she drank for 24 hours after she lost the election, and didn't come out and do her speech. And that's also why the insane left. No, there are the left, and there's beautiful people in it, and they've got common sense. But I'm talking about the insane left that have basically hammering Trump for 3.5 years or more. Or even 4 years, because it's not their story, and they can't. Notice the irony of Hillary Clinton saying, "Oh, Trump won't honor the election results." Well, he kind of did, and you didn't.
So here's an important statement. Here, a very important statement. When Trump was opening up his new hotel in Washington, D.C. during the 2016 campaign, it was at the height of criticizing him for Birthergate, for the birther conspiracy theory, and he made a major statement with a bunch of generals standing behind him, and apparently those were like all generals that were like fired by the Obama administration that knew something about the birth certificate. And then he said, looking at the camera, I'm going to say it it's just like, okay, Hillary Clinton started it, and I'm gonna finish it. Barack Obama, he says, not Barack Hussein Obama. He says Barack Obama was born in the United States. Period. That's it. That's basically all he said. He said Clinton started it, I finished it, and Barack Obama was born in the United States. Period. And the media had a meltdown over that. I think,
So who said that again? Sorry.
Trump did in front of a bunch of generals. Go find his speech that he makes, or his statement to the press or whatever that he makes when he is opening up his hotel in D.C. He was taking the tour of the hotel in D.C. and then he was with these generals that were standing behind him when he made that statement. I remember distinctly when because they had told CNN that he was going to I think they were telling CNN, oh, listen, Trump's going to renounce the birtherism or whatever. And when Trump said it like that, they cut back to Don Lemon, and he was freaked out about it. And he literally said, are we being punked? And,
they were, because he's backtracking now.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing. That is technically what they wanted, for him to basically say that Barack Obama's an American citizen, that you acknowledge that this is BS conspiracy theory, right?
Well, he didn't want to create any conflict at that point in time, so he was forced into a corner to say this.
No, but think about it. He didn't. Yeah, but it still created conflict. It wasn't what they wanted. He didn't give them what they wanted, because it was after that's when the Congressional Black Caucus came out. When the Congressional Black Caucus came out. They went out into the streets as a group with, by the way, the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus is white, by the way, Congressman Butters something. He's a big fat white guy who's 1/16 black, and he's in charge of that group, by the way.
Butterball.
Yeah, Butterball, whatever the hell he is. And they all of them made these stupid superficial statements about bigotry and racism or whatever after Donald Trump said Barack Obama was born in the United States. That's it.
So
that's it.
I got one more point to make here.
Guess what? You still can't be president if you were fraudulent about your identity to be president, because they wanted him specifically. This is what the media complained about. The media said specifically, and congressmen and stuff is like, why can't he say that, Barack Obama was born in Alaska? They couldn't believe that he wouldn't acknowledge the entirety of the story of Barack Obama. Let me just difference.
Viking first, and then HiJacker. We are coming to the end. We are coming. Yes, yeah. He was born in Hawaii, but there's no paperwork. Well done. Right now. Viking, and then HiJacker, and then final thoughts, because we've got about 8 minutes to go.
Well, so also today he did another executive order that's going to create an investigative team to start to isolate all these shell corporations and put them under the pressure of indictments and fraudulent transactions and confiscate their holdings. So he's starting to really narrow down the playing field.
HiJacker?
I just want to interject. Tones, the overlord at Revolution Radio, that holds a sniper rifle as we patrol the streets and become truth tellers and take our lives in our hands as we go door to door on radio. He basically is saying that we got real good numbers, high numbers actually, that are holding, and we know, Monty, that you record this for your 2-hour YouTube station, but Tones wanted to know if Steve, Cortek, Viking, Brew, and myself want to ride over together, because I'm not going to ride by myself. Ride over the hour after you basically cash out, Monty. So you all think about that before we get the final words, whether you all want to keep on going. But I really do want to drill down deep on what's going to happen in the next 130 days. That is the most important thing, how President Trump can, and I see a way in which he can hold this system. He can win this thing. He can still win this thing, even though the deep state's against him, the military generals, all the stuff that we've seen. But anyways, to let you know, basically the Overlord tone says, keep on going. Actually, really high numbers. I actually checked myself. I couldn't believe it. But anyways, Monty, before I lose the thought, because we're about to go off with your recording, what's your website, Monty, and how can people, sub to you and help you out? You got PayPal, anything like that? Go ahead. Thanks, Monty, for what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for bringing us all together.
It's fun, and I learn things, and we talk about things, and I try and bring enjoyment, and that's why there's an element of comedy to it. As Cortek has just put into the chat room, just on YouTube, put in Wafer Thin Entertainment, and that's where you'll find. I think I missed one show because Skype sucked, but every roundtable this year is up on my channel. And just click onto that, and I'll figure out PayPal. And it's I have to do things. I'm getting tired. We have 5 minutes to go, and so final thoughts. First of all, do chaps want to keep going for an after party?
We'll get there in a second. So I'll sweep up. You were asking a question about the debates, Monty?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, so basically Trump wants to have as many debates as possible. He wants to have 10, 20, 50. He doesn't care. He'll debate all day. It doesn't matter who you put in front of him. He just finds it hard to debate with a guy like Biden, who can't talk for more than 3 minutes without flaking off into, when he was a child and talking about cockroaches and hairy legs. But what Biden's camp would do, if they could have no debates at all, they would.
That's funny, bro.
To the least of it, they want to have virtual debates. Well, with these virtual debates, basically they get to, pre-record, they get to do deep fake, they get to dress Hunter Biden up in prosthetics and act like his father. They get to do all types of manipulation with virtual debates. But on the other hand, Biden really said, okay, well, we don't have to have any debates at all. We'll just have a Sadie Hawkins dance instead. And then Trump's camp was like, nah, I don't think we're going to go there. So it's really.
I hadn't heard that, Brew. I hadn't heard about the virtual debates, but yeah, the Democrats are actually manipulating debates through virtual. They'll be given the question. Biden will be in his basement. Trump will be in the White House. They'll go back and forth. They'll have plenty of time. They're going to have a ton of Harvard educated, really high brainy people talking into the ears of Biden. This is what you need to say. This is how you say it. This is the inflection. Great point, Brew. Go ahead.
Well, that's it.
Oh, thank you. Steve, can you share where people can find you?
Yes, I also can share if people want to hear it. Trump making the birther statement, and you can find me at youtube.com/Zerilath, or on Facebook, find my page at Zerilath396. And if there's time, it's only a couple of seconds.
No, we're running short, unfortunately, and so I do apologize for that. Viking, would you like to share when your show is on?
Yeah, the Galactic Interstellar Council, which is 3 of us, we air Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Studio A. And this week we'll be talking about how to fortify and fend yourself against the next 4 months as we enter into an extreme campaign of trials and tribulations and subjugated to dystopia, how you can maintain your focus and center.
Yeah, Cortek, cool. Go ahead. And I'll roll on in the next hour if a couple of other you guys are going to roll on, but I'm not going to do it by myself. So go ahead, Cortex.
I don't have much to add at the moment, Monty.
Oh, just say goodbye then, Cortek.
Goodbye.
Thank you. HiJacker, are you still popping up on Deacon's show?
Yeah, Deacons at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That would be 5 p.m. Every day at Eastern Standard Time. And so Yeah, I'm hanging in there because I got an agenda. I think I know the way that President Trump can actually win, and he's going to have to do something out of the box. And the biggest thing is I do know the deep state controls who's going to actually be the next president of the United States. But my strategy is I'm putting forth a strategy in which when they do, if they do, rip off President Trump from the re-election, that at least a chunk of people, a large group of people are going to know that basically it's an illegitimate government. I'm playing for an illegitimate government. I'm playing a strategy to force the deep state. Either they're going to accept that they're going to rip the election off and everybody's going to know they're illegitimate government, in which all the adrenochrome, the child sacrifices, the drugs, everything else. Then once the Civil War gets on, there's not going to be any moral governor on each of our hearts. I mean, it's going to be bad. We're going to catch a school teacher and we're going to say, "Why do you got that Bobby cut haircut? Are you a butch? What have you been teaching Johnny? Pop, pop." I mean, I just want to remove that as the threat to the deep state. That look, yeah, you can rip it off, but we're all going to know you're illegitimate. So when this thing starts, nobody's going to have any qualms. And so I'm going to use a force weight type of concept, and I think I got the strategy to do it, which I'll talk about if people want to ride into the next hour. If not, okay, I'll jump on Deacon Show. So anybody that want to hang on. I'm going to hang on, and then I'll see who's left. Okay, there you go.
All right, thank you. You've been listening to, and Chicago Brew will be heard on roundtables when he decides to join them, I'm guessing, which is, free will. You've been listening to Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. You're on Revolution Radio. We will see you next week. Have fun.